business, and innovation. EIN TV, educative, innovative, and nature centric.
Hello, welcome to another interesting edition of Environmental Research, your favorite pro-environment and, of course, climate education program on TV on your screen right now. Of course, we know a couple of days ago we celebrated the World TV Day, and I understand that the theme was from black and white to what we have now. You know, the color TV, or that's from the monochrome to the kind of visuals we have now on your TV. And of course, again, we understand that the TV has moved from the conventional box TV to even as little gadgets in our hands. And so we celebrated the World TV Day. And so it was more of a day to enlighten everyone, of course, how we've grown and how important role TV has played in our lives. And again, in the next couple of days, I think Saturday, precisely 25th of November, will be the beginning of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And of course, 25th will be marked globally as the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls. And the good news is one of our organizations, of course, Blue Green Initiative for Sustainable Development, marking that day in a school, in a community school, somewhere in its local government area of Akwa Ibom State. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ediong Senyene Ndundobong, and this is Environmental Research. Do not forget, we've been running a series over time, trying to analyze and, of course, see how different subnational governments are operating with regards to their climate change policy drives. And we've been to a couple of states. We've been to Abia, we've been to Akwa Ibom, we've been to Niger State, we've been to Kogi and some other places. And today on the show, we are in Nasarawa State, and Nasarawa is in the central region, north central region of Nigeria. Nasarawa is bounded to the east by the state of Taraba and Plateau State, and to the north by Kaduna State, to the south by the state of Benue and Kogi, and to the west by the Federal Capital Territory. And that brings to mind the fact that there are some people that will be staying in Nasarawa State and telling themselves they are in the FCT, you know, just to, I don't know, whatever intention or intent they want to achieve. But then that is, you know, Nasarawa State. And so today on the show, we'll be talking about, you know, the climate change policy drive in Nasarawa State, how, you know, climate change is affecting the people of the state, and how, you know, the people are surviving, you know, talking about adaptation, because we understand that while the global north are trying to push us to mitigate, yes, we would love to mitigate, but again, how do we mitigate without adapting? You know, what if we die before we begin to mitigate, or in the course of trying to mitigate? So, you know, the consequences that are always there. So we want to understand how the people of Nasarawa State are adapting to the impact of climate change, and of course what they are doing to mitigate, of course, climate-related events. And of course, so joining us on the show tonight will be, you know, climate activists, experts, and of course, in their own right, and they have been doing tremendously well in, you know, their operations and of course their activities. While we are still, you know, talking, I would like to introduce one of them. We have two guests joining us from Nasarawa State today, but we are still trying to see how the second person would sort his internet issue. But again, let me apologize in advance. You know, the lighting situation. I wonder why a state very close to the FCT would be lacking in power. You know, by power I mean electricity, because the two guests, you know, in the course of this conversation may not come out with their visuals. You'll be hearing their voices, especially one of them. So we're trying to see how we can sort this and have a fluid conversation. So I apologize in advance that you may be seeing just two or one face per time, but trust me, the conversation is going to be robust and engaging. And so let me introduce the first speaker who's still here with us. His name is Ovye Solomon. Ovye Solomon is an environmentalist and, of course, a climate activist. There are other titles Ovye carries, which when I grant him the audience to speak, he will get to introduce himself further. Ovye, can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you. I can hear you.
Okay, please. Welcome to Environmental Resource. So good to have you on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure from here too. Good evening, everyone listening and watching.
Okay, I wanted you to do a proper introduction of yourself because I understand that there were some parts of your introduction that did not make properly.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much for the privilege. And then, like I said earlier, a good evening to Nigerians and other people watching from across the continent and the breadth of the planet. My name is Obadiah Solomon Ovye. I am a climate activist and then an environmentalist by training. I'm also the Secretary Nasarawa State Network for Environment and Climate Justice, which is known as NASNEC. I think for the purpose of the conversation today, I want to just be okay and comfortable with this. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I like when people are humble, and it happens that Mr. Solomon Obe happens to be one of them. Very humble person, and men of integrity, men of substance are always very humble. Thank you so very much, Mr. Obe, for coming on the show. Okay, so quickly, we dive into the subject matter of the day. We are already 12 minutes behind schedule, and I'm supposed to keep you beyond 30 minutes on the show today. While we are preparing for or waiting for Aliyu to join us, let's just have um, a sort of a feel of what the spirit is over there, or what the spirit, if I put it that way, or what the feel is generally over there in Nasarawa State today.
Wow, the feeling in Nasarawa State is the normal feeling, the feeling of resilience, the feeling of good tidings. Nasarawa State is considerably a peaceful state, so I think the state is very okay. That's the feeling. But then it's also one that actually come to a perspective of mixed feeling when you're talking of the dispensation of justice in regards to the election in the state where the appeal made the judgment for the case, and then the state governor's case was a reverse as regards the judgment made by the tribunal in the state. I think
Mm.
so. Basically, it's a mixed feelings from the two opposing sides. Why others are very happy with the outcome, others are actually licking their wounds, or better still, I would say they are actually counting their costs in that regard. But then the feeling is it's peaceful. I think people are able to coordinate themselves, and basically everything is fine under control. I think that's the feeling over here.
All right, thank you very much. I like the fact that you brought in all of the perspective, especially with regards to I didn't want to trigger that because I know the tempo may be a bit high at this point because of the judgment of the appeal court, and then but I understand that this is Nigeria, and I
Yeah.
almost wanted to say welcome to Nigeria. Okay. Okay, let's get to dive deep into the conversion for tonight. Talking about climate change policy driving in Nasarawa State, and we understand that we have the Climate Change Act, which is at the national level, and of course, we understand that there are some lacunas, and sometimes just the state government may have the Ministry of Environment and other related matters, and of course, but it's not trickled down to the government level. Let's talk about the climate policy in your state. What is it like? Has it been somewhat drawn down from what is obtainable at the federal level?
Okay, thank you very much. It's important that we across board understand the fact that most subnationals are not very acclimatized with the Climate Change Act. By acclimatize, I mean they may know it, but then they've not taken time to really understand what the act is. And by understanding it, it's actually trickled down to localization of those acts and then using it at the state level. I think most of the subnationals who have not been able to do it. But then in Nasarawa advantage I think we have only advantage that civil society organizations have been able to come in and partner with the Ministry of Environment at the state level to see that what we have in the act is being replicated at the state level. So a draft of the Nasarawa State climate change policy have been developed, and then it's not yet an act because it has not been able to go through the legislative process that will grant assent and then finally becomes an act. But then a draft of that policy have been done and then shared with the Ministry of Environment. By the way, the Ministry of Environment asks civil society organizations who are working around issues of environment and climate to help them in developing this important document and then localizing it to fit into the context of the state, fitting into the context of the state because Nasarawa, for example, is home of solid minerals, and then there is a whole lot of exploration and mining of mineral resources. You don't expect that we have something the same as Adama, which has little activities around mining and exploration of mineral resources. So those key areas that are peculiar to our state in this context, Nasarawa State, have been captured in the policy. But then at the moment, it's still a draft that has been sent to the Ministry of Environment just before the last election. The good thing is that the former commissioner, who actually was relieved of his duties before the election, is back in the same ministry as the present commissioner. So we expect that there will be a follow up to that, and then we'll see how it can actually come into bear as an act. But at the moment, I think it's not the attention that is supposed to be given to it has not been there, and there is need for more engagement in that regard. The engagement now is not just between the within the government circle. I think civil society organizations, climate actors, and a whole lot of stakeholders in this line need to actually come up, put in their resources, and then see that this is given the needed attention that it deserves. Now, when we
Okay,
go to the local government,
go ahead, go ahead.
okay, so now when we go to the local government, sorry, I have to take time to make this explanatory so that we can actually have a background and then
Yeah,
getting to
sure,
the
please.
local government will be easier. So when we get to the local government, the funny thing is that most of these issues are bound at the local government level. Most of the impacts are being felt at the local government level. But then there is little engagement of persons at the local level in terms of their own voices when we're drafting these policies. And then for Nasarawa State, I think it's also one of the areas we've not been able to address fully. But I can tell you in confidence that we've been able to carry out a climate audit of the state, which I was part of. I was in forefront of that activity to understand what are the climate challenges facing us, climate change challenges facing us, and then the possible community solutions or actions that need to be taken to see that those problems and challenges are being sorted or solved. But then beyond that, we've not seen anything in terms of policy, in terms of anything that binds on the people through the government at the local level. So I think basically that's where we've not been able to get it right as a people. At the state level, I think it's a considerable start, though we've not been able to have this as an act, but at the local government level, I think more work needs to be done to see that we get it the
Okay,
way it's
so
supposed
so
to be.
I I understand that. I understand the peculiar that it's not peculiar to just your state when it comes to mainstreaming climate related activity, especially with regards to policy and governmental agency to the local government level. I understand it across the 774 local
Local
government
government.
areas in Nigeria, and it's something we've been advocating for. That at least we should have desk officers in and each of these local government areas. And I am hoping that something will be done. But let me get to you again on something very important. I understand that you are the secretary of the coalition of civil society organizations in Nasarawa State, especially as it pertains to the environment. I just want to ask you what the environment is like for civil society, because I understand that in some states um, the civil society actors are seen as enemy of the government, especially when they are trying to lead in activism and advocacy for the people. Do you have a leveling environment, an enabling environment rather, or a level playing ground for your operations in Nasarawa State as civil society actors?
Yeah, so Nasarawa State, in terms of classification on civil society engagement, I won't place us at the high rank, but then I
Mm,
will actually comfortably put us somewhere in between. We're not at the top, and then we're not at the bottom. So let's just place us within the middle. I think that will be fine for us. And when it comes to civil society government relation or government civil society relation, our state is not one that is filled up with hate or bitterness for each other, but then it is just a norm that our government are very, very skeptical of engagement with civil society organizations. I won't want to go into details of that, but then most at times they see civil society organizations coming as if they are agitators, or they're coming to antagonize what the government is doing,
yeah,
which is not
yeah.
so. So for us in the Environment and Climate Change Coalition, what we've been able to do is to try and see that we establish a good working relationship with these government agencies, and then we also try to build capacity around lobbying, so that when we come and then follow those approaches, they understand what we need. They understand that we're not coming to fight them or antagonize what they're doing, but then we're coming to be stakeholders in the change process that is expected, particularly as regard the environment and climate space. So
Mm,
that is basically it. But then we can also not do away with pockets of government agencies, ministries, departments, and agencies that are not so comfortable, especially when they see civil society organizations. Now, I'll tell you a story. The Netherlands embassy in Nigeria are one of the funders, or the major funders of the AACJ project. We are in the state to have do a site, or what you call Sims visit. And then when they came to the state, we had challenges seeing one of the commissioners in the state. You can imagine that you had the guys from Netherlands coming into the state just to see that what the state is doing is being appreciated, and then maybe give in their support in regard to that. But then one of the commissioners couldn't actually give us the privilege of engaging with him,
seen in
just
there.
because maybe he has something he's not comfortable with in that regard. So but then I think one of the challenges we had in that regard was we didn't do a good groundwork in terms of having engagement and then making him understand why that visit was important. So these are some of the scenarios we've had, one, two, three of such scenarios. But then I think generally I would say we're not doing bad as a state.
Excellent, excellent. I like the way you are analytical, you are explanatory with your response, especially with regards to how you put forward your response. Thank you so very much, Ovie. This is
Thank you.
environmental return, of course, the fourth edition on this. Is it the fourth or the fifth edition on this series of following up with subnational government policy drive on climate change? And the voice you're hearing is that of Ovie Solomon, a climate activist and of course, Secretary of the Coalition of Civil Society Organizations in Nasarawa State. I would like to say thank you to all of you, especially you that has been keeping us active on this space, watching our show, sharing our content, and of course, making sure that we spread the message of climate education, of course, creating proper awareness for people to know how to cope and how to deal with climate related change. I would like to say a very big thank you to our sponsors, and of course, the guys that always make sure that we are here on your screen. That's Blue Green Initiative for Sustainable Development, Climate and Sustainable Development Network of Nigeria, and of course, Pan African Climate Justice Alliance. Thank you so very much, guys, for always keeping us, active on this space. Again, also, I would like to introduce one of the guests. I told you that two guys will be joining us today from Nasarawa State. So while you were hearing the voice of Ovye Solomon, Aliyu Sadiq was on the background or at the background, to come on the show. Aliyu, you're welcome to Environmental Resorts. Aliyu, if you can hear me, you can speak up. Aliyu, can you hear me? Okay, I think Aliyu is still struggling with poor internet access, but I trust that before we wrap up this conversation, he will be coming on board because I have series of questions for him. Now let's get back to you, Mr. Ovye. I just wanted to talk about engagement, because we understand that most of these policies, like you've talked about, how there is a policy draft already that is waiting for legislative action in your state. As the engagement, like, because we understand that there's a saying, which of course I believe to be true, that if it was to be policy about policy, Nigeria would have been far way developed than we are now. That we have fantastic policies, a fantastic document that will aid our growth. But the problem has been the implementation. After the policy is being adopted or all of that, it's you to end up in gathering dust in the shell. So what has been the actions by your state government with regards to climate change?
So, in regards to actions by the state government, most of the actions we've seen are more of proclamations that doesn't have any legal backings to it, and that's why the policy is still important. Now, when you have policy, it gives direction and then it holds people accountable.
Accountable,
Now,
yeah.
if the government is not going to take responsibility for that, I think we know who is not taking responsibility. But then, when the policy is not there, people tend to do things, or things are being done without having control over them. So that is it on that side. But then, I think the government is not also being very proactive, but also the fault is not on the government, but on individuals like us who have not been able to hold duty bearers accountable to those actions. A road is being constructed within Lafia Metropolis, and then it has these road dividers. And when the construction was on, I know people were like, planting trees on those dividers would have been a very good idea, but then trees were not planted there. Now, when we come out to advocate for this generally, and then make government feel that it is important, government is definitely going to take actions. But then you see that while these policies are not there, government also are also not very active in taking actions, especially in that regard. One of the things you also need to understand is that climate issue for us down here, down south, it's more of like an emerging issue for us. So you have governments and individuals in government who have been working in this space for a long time, but then have limited knowledge on how to engage and how to come up with these things. So those are basically some of the issues. Yeah, the policies are not just it, but then I think a lack of knowledge about the subject matter, not holding duty bearers accountable to some of these issues, and then civil society organization also not creating the needed awareness that is expected of us are also some of the challenges we face in terms of government not performing optimally even when our policies are not just the most important thing for us. So I think that's my take on that.
All right, thank you very much, Ovie. Thank you, and thank you indeed. That was quite, fantastic. I like the fact that you also lead in advocacies because even when they act as if they don't listen or they do not hear your voice. Trust me, they hear you loud and clear, and
Yeah.
of course you will get to see that they are taking action. I don't know if Aliyu can hear me. Aliyu, can you hear me? Hello, Aliyu. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Hello, Mr. Edion.
Yeah, Aliyu.
Can you hear me now?
Speak up a bit.
Hello, Mr. Edion. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me, Aliyu?
Hi, Mr. Edion. Can you hear me now?
Oh, Aliyu is
Hello,
still
Mr.
having
Edion.
issues picking up my voice. Aliyu, can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you hear me too?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear. Beautiful.
Hello,
So
Edion.
Aliyu is the executive director of EcoCycle Network or EcoCycle Limited, one of the organization led by young people. And of course, as you can see, Ali is a very young person, but then he has done tremendously well for for nature, and of course, to see that we as a people are contributing our quota to fighting climate change. Ali, you welcome to Environmental Resort.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so while you were away and you're trying to sort your technicalities towards joining this conversation, Mr. Ovye had filled in some very critical questions, and I actually I wanted to understand this perspective, so I kept it for you because I know it's very important, and in a couple of I think 2 weeks from now, if is it up to 2 weeks again, by next week rather, the Conference of Party will begin in the UAE, and we understand the place of young people in the fight against climate change. I would like to understand how involved the government that's made young people in Nasarawa State to be. What has been how do I put it? What has been the aid of government towards making sure that young people are involved in climate related activities, and how are they carried along? Yeah, I think that's how to put it. How are the young people being carried along in the climate change space in Nasarawa State? Hello, Aliyu. Can you hear me? I think signal has quite been poor over where Aliyu is, but then we sincerely apologize, and of course this is Nigeria, so it's not strange. Ovie,
Yes, I'm still here.
yeah, it's like the signal is actually very poor at Aliyu's end, and
I guess so.
oh, Aliyu is off. Okay, now Ovie, let me keep that question pending for Aliyu till when he's back. I want to get back to you now. Let's talk
Yeah.
about the peculiarity of issues regarding the environment in Nasarawa State. What are those particular challenges? Aliyu, can you hear me? Okay, so I'll get back to you. What are those peculiar environmental challenges that you want to talk about with regards to Nasarawa State?
Okay. So for me, I'm not going to cop, and I hope that you we will discuss this issue in Nigeria while Aliyu and others like you go to COP and get our voices heard over there. So for Nasarawa State, the peculiar issues but in regards to the environment, first I would say I think waste management, poor waste management culture in the state is an issue of concern. We share boundary with the FCT, and then
Yeah.
the high population density in those corridors at the end of the day also leads to a whole lot of waste which are poorly managed, and I think it's one of the issues we're having in this state. beyond the FCT corridor, that's Karu, coming into the state, you see that there is no deliberate effort to manage the waste we generate across all the local government. None. I mean, none. I've been to all
Mm.
the local government, have engagement around, and you observe that there is uh, uh, no plans or no waste management strategy in the state. Now, beyond this, I think one of the issue that is on the burner is the fact that there is a high level of tree felling, and then they are used for charcoal. I was in a village recently. I went to a village recently, just within the week, and then traveling through the road, like I mean, interior village. But then I was so surprised that charcoal are being produced in those locations, those remote locations. So you can imagine the damage or the harm that is being caused to the environment through felling of trees. Another issue, of course, is the exploration of mineral resources, and then
Okay, that was the voice of Ovie Solomon that you were hearing. And of course, he was trying to talk about the peculiar, challenges, environmental challenges being faced in Nasarawa State. And of course, he was talking about the tree felling issues in Nasarawa for, charcoal. I thought that was only peculiar to Niger State. I did not know that, some other North Central states is facing the same challenge. And it's quite unfortunate that, you know, that this is happening despite all of the awareness. Let me see if I can bring on Aliyu to speak on the show.
Hello, Mr.
Okay,
Edion.
Aliyu. Yeah, welcome.
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
so
My
Aliyu, prior
apologies
to
for the
your being kicked out again, kicked out by the poor signal, I had thrown a question at you, and of course I had to still keep it. Talking about how the young people are being carried along, or empowered, to take climate action in your state, Nasarawa State.
Okay, yeah. So I think I had some part of Ovie's
Yeah, please, you may want to
the
speak up a bit. You may want to speak up a bit. Your voice is somewhat low.
okay, thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, yeah. So I think I had some parts of Ovie's input during the conversation, and this is something that myself and Ovie and other young people are agitating for and are advocating for, in terms of bridging that gap, getting young people to become more involved. Just recently, I tried to reach out to the state government to find out is a delegation going to COP28 from the states, um, particularly even having a delegation that has young people from the states, because the presence of the states in COP doesn't just attract um, green investments or drives, green development and climate action. It also brings about young people's inclusion in driving this climate action. It was unfortunate that I don't think there's a delegation going from my state. So these are, some of the challenges. But then the effort that has been, which we have observed, has been some level of effort from, federal government and World Bank projects, especially around the ACRISAL and the some other World Bank project, especially engage with partnership with the state ministry. I just want to confirm if you can hear me.
Yeah, but it's somewhat fainty. I can hear you, but it's
Hello, Mr.
fainty.
Young.
Yes, I can hear you, but your voice is low. I'm straining my ears. But
Mr.
you
Young,
can
can
you
you
can
hear
go
me?
ahead. Yes, I can hear you. I think it's better now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, speak up. I can hear you.
Is it still is it better now?
Yes, I think it's better. Go ahead.
Okay, okay.
Aliyu.
So let me just go ahead. So I said, like I said earlier, it's unfortunate that there wouldn't be a delegation. and not just a delegation that has young people, inclusive. And this is contrary to states like Niger State, Kaduna State, and other states, and Lagos states amongst others, that's looking back to their previous engagements at COP. You could see the level of involvement, you could see the level of bilateral meetings and engagement, and you could see the dividend. Mr. Edion, can you hear?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead. Okay, it's actually a very troublesome having Aliyu steady on the show tonight. But again, you understand that it's one of the challenges we face as, internet users in Nigeria, that you will be struggling, even when you're staying close to the Federal Capital Territory, which is where power is being dispensed from. But again, we still have to do, we have to do what we have to do. Brother, again, it's unfortunate that Ovie was unable to wrap up his thought with regards to the peculiar issues regarding the environment in Nasarawa State. But be as it may, so far it has been a very rewarding and robust engagement. I would like to say a very big thank you to you for always staying on the show, and of course for always making sure that our content get across to people that needs to listen to them, and needs to watch, and of course take action or perhaps learn from them. Okay, without further ado, I would like to thank especially the organization that has always made sure that we are here on your screen. That is, I'm talking about Blue Green Initiative for Sustainable Development, and of course, Climate and Sustainable Development Network of Nigeria and Pan-African Climate Justice Alliance. It's always been, quite a privilege, having them support us. And again, tomorrow, Blue Green Initiative for Sustainable Development, and of course the entire team that will be on ground will be leading a sensitization tour to a community secondary school in Itam. It's a local government area of Akwa Ibom State. And the focus of that conversation, of that engagement rather, will be towards how to eliminate violence against women and girls, especially in a changing climate, because we understand that the impact of climate change is about most of these violence that we experience. Because imagine, let me give you an instance. Imagine a man, a farmer who went to the farm, and unfortunately for him, flood has taken over his farmland that he has spent money and other resources to, to cultivate, to plant, and of course, expecting to harvest and make some profit, and of course, with some leftover for home consumption. And then a very furious man going back home, then the wife mistakenly, stepped on his toes or touched his very, wrong part because of the bad experience he had had in the farm. And then out of you know inability to control self, and it reacts in a very bad manner. It may not be by beating the wife, or but something, by talking to her anyhow, or even the female children, even the male children too. So you see the impact of climate change. Imagine a fisherman going at fishing for about 2 days. I understand some of them stay for 2 days or more on the sea, and then returning home with almost nothing. Whereas before then it was not so. And so you can see now that climate change impact cut across every facet of life. It cut across every endeavor of life, every career, and of course on every engagement. So if you do not take action, we find out that the impact will still be there, and of course it will not be just be there, but it will keep increasing, it to expand, and of course every other person will be suffering from the impact of climate change. And we understand that women and girls fall under the class of people who suffer more from the impact of climate change. For instance, where they have to go a distance to fetch water, where they have to go distance to fetch firewood or firewood, as you may call it, where they have to, some have to sacrifice, their career advancement to, make sure that they take care of their young ones, of course, the family and everything there too. So it is pertinent that we, bringing the climate change mix into the whole conversation, so that as a multi-dimensional issue as that may be, we also know how to tackle all them from different dimensions. So that will be about the conversation. I'll be the sensitization event tomorrow at the Paubong, I hope I get the name well, community secondary school in Itam, it's sort of government area of Akwa State. So I must thank Blue Green Initiative Sustainable Development for taking up such an initiative, and by taking it not just to because I know they would have had the choice of fixing that in one of the secondary schools in the urban area, but they had to move it to the interior because we understand that the people at the local communities suffers from the impact of climate change. Some of them without even knowing. So you see, it's that bad, and we need to take this information. We need to take this awareness and of course activities to the people of the grassroots. And again, it should not just stop there. It's going to be a proper 16 days of activism. So beginning 25th proper, there's going to be a series of engagements online and offline, to make sure that we sensitize the people with regards to gender-based violence. And again, so I'm telling you, please, whether you're a man or you're a woman, please do not engage in gender-based violence of whatever sort, whether against a girl child, boy child, a woman, a man. Violence is not the way forward, but we can, cohabit. We can stay together in peace and harmony without really having to fight each other. Already, climate change is giving us a lot of problems, so we do not have to compound it by becoming violent against each other. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me say thank you to you, especially for always finding time to be a part of the show, and a very big thank you to our guest today, whom, despite the internet challenges in their area and of course power supply issues, they still have to sacrifice their time and of course intellectual resources to make sure they come on the show. Thank you, Ovye Solomon. Thank you, Aliyu Sadiq, for being a part of the show today. Ladies and gentlemen, that will be the size of our show today on subnational government climate change policy drive. And today we were in Nasarawa State. If you guess correctly where the next destination will be, you may get to win something. My name is Eddie Oxengen and Dunobo. And from Uyo, Nigeria, we want to wish you a pleasant night rest while we encourage that you take climate action, irrespective of how small you think your action is. I'd like to tell you again that there is no action, no climate action that is insignificant or small. Every action counts. So take action today. Good night.
This is EIN TV, your one-stop TV space for conversations around nature, societal issues, education, business, and innovation.